The knock came at midnight, sharp and authoritative. Police stood at my neighbor's door, but I knew they were here because of us. I pressed myself against the wall in darkness, hands trembling, while my mother and the man she called husband tore into each other with words that cut deeper than glass. Everything shattered the moment Aunt Diane spoke those two words. Family first. That's when I understood. They would all choose them. Never me. The blue lights flashing through our windows illuminated the truth I'd been denying for years. Blood doesn't make family, and family doesn't always mean safety. My name is Natalie Carter, and I learned early that some families have room for everyone except their own. I was 9 when my father died. A sudden heart attack that left my mother scrambling to hold together the pieces of our life in Riverside Heights. This wasn't the kind of town where single mothers thrived. It was the kind where country clubs had waiting lists spanning generations, where your last name determined which grocery store you shopped at, and where my mother saw Tom Barrett as salvation rather than the slow poison he would become. Tom swept in like a savior 18 months after Dad's funeral. He owned Barrett Properties with his cousin, drove a Mercedes that gleamed like his teeth, and had 2 children from his previous marriage. Ethan, who was my age, and Haley, 2 years younger. My mother's eyes lit up when he looked at her, and I remember thinking maybe this could work. Maybe we could be a family again. How naive I was. The hierarchy established itself within weeks of their wedding. Tom's children got the bedrooms with ensuite bathrooms, while I moved to the converted attic space. "You're the oldest," my mother explained, her voice pitched high with false cheer. "You understand, don't you, sweetheart? Ethan needs space for his sports equipment, and Haley has all those dance costumes." I understood perfectly. I understood when Ethan's football uniforms cost more than my entire school wardrobe. I understood when Haley's dance recitals became family events we all attended, while my academic achievement awards were acknowledged with distracted nods. I understood when Tom would ruffle Ethan's hair and call him champ, while I remained your daughter in every conversation with my mother. The college years brought the cruelest clarity. I'd worked myself to exhaustion for a full scholarship to State University, late nights, perfect grades, community service that left me hollow-eyed but determined. The acceptance letter arrived the same week Ethan got waitlisted at a party school 2 states away. That night at dinner, Tom announced he'd be making a significant donation to ensure Ethan's acceptance. "What about Natalie's achievement?" my mother ventured, her voice small. "A full scholarship is incredible." Tom's fork clinked against his plate. "Anyone can get into state. It takes real connections to get into Preston College." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw myself through his eyes, an inconvenience he'd inherited, like old furniture from my mother's previous life. The car situation broke something in me. I'd saved for 3 summers working at the local bookstore, had finally scraped together enough for a used Honda. The morning I planned to buy it, I found my savings account emptied. My mother stood in the kitchen, unable to meet my eyes. "Ethan needed a car for college," she said. "Tom said we're a family, and families share resources." That was my money. I earned every penny. "Don't be selfish, Natalie. Tom provides this roof over our heads. The least you can do is contribute." I watched from my attic window as Ethan drove away in a brand new Mustang that afternoon. My mother and Tom waving from the driveway. Haley was already planning which of her friends would get to ride in it first. Nobody looked up to see me watching, and I realized they never had. In this house, in this family, I was a ghost who paid rent in silence and sacrifice. That was the day I promised myself I would get out. I would build something they couldn't take, become someone they couldn't diminish. But even then, standing in that attic room with its slanted ceiling that I'd hit my head on countless times, I didn't yet understand the full price of being an outsider in your own home. I didn't know that Tom's cruelty was just beginning, or that my mother's weakness ran deeper than I imagined. I didn't know that family first would become the battle cry of my destruction, and eventually, theirs. 7 years had passed since that day in the attic, and I'd kept my promise. My cramped dorm room at State became my sanctuary. The finance textbooks my weapons. While Ethan partied his way through Preston College on Tom's dime, I graduated summa cum laude with 3 internships under my belt. Summit Capital Group hired me straight out of college. Not the most prestigious firm, but solid, respectable, mine. Now at 30, I stood in my office as Deputy Director of Investment Analysis, staring at the skyline of downtown Riverside Heights. My apartment might be small, a 1-bedroom in a building without a doorman, but the lease had only my name on it. The sanctuary I'd built with my own hands, where Tom's voice couldn't reach. "Congratulations on the Morrison account," my colleague Derek said, poking his head into my office. "That's the 3rd major client you've brought in this quarter." I smiled, the kind that actually reached my eyes, something I'd relearned how to do in spaces where Tom wasn't watching. "Thanks. The presentation went better than expected." My phone buzzed. "Mom?" "Family dinner Sunday. Don't make excuses." I'd skipped the last 3, claiming work emergencies that weren't entirely lies. But my mother had started showing up at my office, her disappointment a weapon sharper than Tom's contempt. "Is this what your father would want?" she'd asked last time. "You abandoning your family?" That Sunday, I drove my reliable Toyota Camry, purchased with my own money, every payment made on time, to the house that still felt like a prison. The Barrett Properties sign on the lawn had been updated, now reading Barrett and Barrett Properties since Tom had made Ethan a partner. My mother met me at the door, her smile bright and brittle. "Natalie, you look—" She paused, searching for something kind to say about my simple black dress and flats. "Professional." The dining room erupted in laughter as I entered. Ethan held court, his blonde girlfriend draped over his arm, while Tom raised a glass of whiskey that cost more than my weekly groceries. Haley was showing off her engagement ring, a massive diamond from her fiancé, a surgeon's son. "Well, if it isn't the career woman," Tom said, the words dripping with mockery. "Still pushing papers at that little firm?" "Summit manages over $2 billion in assets," I said quietly. "That's adorable," Ethan smirked. "We just closed a deal worth $40 million. Single transaction. But hey, everyone starts somewhere." "Speaking of starting," my mother interjected, her voice artificially bright, "Ethan needs some help with a new investment opportunity. Something about a development fund? I thought with your experience, you could guide him." I saw the trap immediately. "I'd need to see the paperwork first. SEC regulations are—" "Christ, everything's about regulations with you," Tom interrupted. "This is family. We're asking for advice, not a federal investigation. Though I suppose when you're just a mid-level employee, you have to be careful about everything. I'm deputy director of my department. Still someone else's employee." He took another sip of whiskey. "Ethan's building an empire. You're building a resume." My mother's hand found mine under the table, squeezing in what she thought was reassurance but felt like shackles. "Natalie's always been so good with numbers. Remember when she helped with the taxes that one time? Family helps family." "Actually," I said, extracting my hand, "I should go early morning tomorrow." "On a Monday?" Haley laughed. "God, no wonder you're still single. Well, except for that construction worker Mom mentioned." "He's an engineer," I corrected. "Same thing, isn't it?" Tom's smile was sharp. "Manual labor with a fancier title. Fitting, I suppose. You both know your place in the pecking order." I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. My mother followed me to the door, her whispers urgent. "Why do you always have to make things difficult? Tom's offering to include you." "In what, Mom? Another scheme where I take all the risk while Ethan gets all the reward?" "That's not fair. We're family, we support each other." I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who'd chosen Tom's comfort over my childhood, who still chose his approval over my achievements. "No, Mom, you support them. There's a difference." Driving home, I thought about the Morrison account, about Derek's congratulations, about the promotion I was being considered for. I'd built something real, something solid, but as I pulled into my building's parking garage, I couldn't shake the feeling that Tom and Ethan were planning something. The investment fund question wasn't casual. With them, nothing ever was. I was right to be worried. I just didn't know yet how much. I met Jake Harmon on a Tuesday that started like any other, except it would change everything. Summit had brought him in as a structural assessment consultant for the Riverside Marina development, a project I was leading the financial analysis for. He walked into our conference room in a crisp button-down and jeans, blueprints under one arm, laptop under the other, and absolutely no pretense about him. "You must be Natalie Carter," he said, extending his hand. "I've heard you're the one who actually knows what they're talking about around here." His handshake was firm, calloused from actual work, and his smile was genuine, not the calculated thing I was used to from the men in suits who usually filled these rooms. Over the next 3 weeks, we worked side by side, translating between his engineering pragmatism and the investor's profit margins. Jake had a way of cutting through corporate doublespeak that made me laugh. Really laugh. For the first time in months. "So let me get this straight," he said one evening as we reviewed spreadsheets over takeout Chinese. "They want to cut the foundation budget by 30%, but add a rooftop infinity pool?" "Welcome to finance," I said, stealing a dumpling from his plate. "In engineering, we call that catastrophic structural failure waiting to happen. But hey, it'll look great on Instagram before it collapses." We started having coffee after our meetings, then drinks, then dinner at a little Italian place where the owner knew Jake by name and the wine was cheap but good. He told me about growing up in Ohio, getting his degree on the GI Bill after serving in Afghanistan, building his firm from nothing. "No trust fund?" I teased. "No daddy's connections?" "Unless you count my dad's connection to the night shift at the steel mill," he said. "Everything I have, I built myself. I'm guessing you understand that." I did. God, I did. When I finally agreed to introduce him to my family, after 3 months of creative excuses, I tried to prepare him. But how do you explain Tom Barrett to someone who's never encountered that particular breed of casual cruelty? The dinner was a disaster from the moment we walked in. Tom didn't stand to greet Jake, just looked him up and down like he was appraising faulty merchandise. "So, construction work," Tom said before we'd even sat down. "That must be satisfying, working with your hands." "I'm a structural engineer," Jake corrected politely. "I own Harmon Engineering Associates." "How nice. A small business owner." The condescension dripped from every word. "Ethan here just acquired his 3rd commercial property, but everyone starts somewhere." My mother fluttered around, trying to smooth edges that were designed to cut. "Jake, would you like some wine? We have a lovely Bordeaux that Tom selected." "I'm good with beer, if you have it," Jake said. Tom's smirk widened. "Of course you are." The interrogation continued through dinner. Where did Jake go to school? State like Natalie. How consistent. Where did he live? The North Side? Brave of you. What were his prospects? Small firms have such limited growth potential. But the moment that would haunt me came when Aunt Diane arrived for dessert. My mother's sister swept in wearing designer everything, her presence immediately shifting the room's gravity. She was the matriarch of my mother's family, the one who'd married into real money, the one whose opinion shaped reality for everyone else. "This must be the boyfriend," she said, barely glancing at Jake before turning to my mother. "Linda, we need to talk about the foundation gala. The family should present a united front." "Jake and Natalie could come together," my mother suggested weakly. Diane's laugh was like breaking glass. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. The gala has a certain standard. I'm sure Jake understands. These things are about family, and in this family, we put family first." She looked directly at me. Real family, the kind that shares blood and values and background. Jake's hand found mine under the table, steady and warm. "I think what you mean is the kind that shares bank accounts and tolerates each other for inheritance purposes." The silence was deafening. Tom's face darkened. Ethan choked on his wine. But Aunt Diane just smiled, cold as winter. How refreshingly honest. Natalie, darling, a word in the kitchen? I followed her, my legs shaking. She cornered me by the marble island my mother never cooked on. That man is not suitable, she said simply. You're already enough of an outlier in this family. Don't make it worse. I love him. Love? She laughed. Your mother loved your father. And look where that got her, scrambling for scraps until Tom rescued her. You think love pays for anything? You think love matters when you're nobody from nowhere? She gripped my arm. Family first. Natalie, that's how we survive. That's how we thrive. Your little boyfriend doesn't understand our world, and he never will. Don't embarrass us further. When I returned to the dining room, Jake was standing. We're leaving, he said quietly. In the car? He was silent until we reached his apartment. Then, they're poison. Nat, every single one of them. Not my mother. Especially your mother. She lets it happen. She watches them tear you down and does nothing. He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing and accepting were different things. I won't go back there, he said. I won't watch them hurt you. But I'm not going anywhere either. You're worth 1,000 of them. That night, as Jake held me in his simple apartment with its second-hand furniture and shelves built with his own hands, I felt safer than I ever had in that massive house with its marble counters and empty rooms. But I also felt the ground shifting beneath us. Tom and Diane wouldn't let this stand. In their world, I'd committed the ultimate sin. I'd found happiness outside their control. The retaliation would come. I just didn't know it would come for my career first. The email arrived on a Thursday morning, hidden among routine correspondence. The sender was listed as E. Barrett Investments, but the message had been recalled. Too late. I'd already opened it. My blood went cold as I read the forwarded chain between Tom and Ethan. Summit's credentials are perfect, and won't even know until it's too late. Family companies help family companies, right, Dad? I screenshot everything before it could disappear. My fingers trembling. They were using my position at Summit, my credentials, my reputation to legitimize a shadow investment fund. The attached documents showed marketing materials for Barrett Premier Capital, with my name listed as Senior Advisory Consultant. I'd never heard of Barrett Premier Capital until that moment. Derek knocked on my door. Hey, Nat, did you approve some external consultation? Compliance is asking about a fund using our verification codes. My stomach dropped. What fund? Something called Barrett Premier. They're claiming Summit partnership status. Using our risk assessment models. Your digital signature is on the authorization. I pulled up our internal systems. There it was. My forged signature on documents I'd never seen. Authorizing the use of Summit's proprietary data for external investment vehicles. The timestamp showed access from my login credentials at 2 a.m. 3 nights ago, when I'd been asleep in Jake's apartment. Derek, I need you to freeze everything related to this immediately. That evening, I confronted Tom at his office. Barrett Properties occupied the top floor of a building they'd somehow acquired despite market downturns that crushed their competitors. Tom didn't look surprised to see me. Natalie? Here to finally join the family business properly? You forged my signature. You're using my credentials to run a fraudulent investment fund. He leaned back in his leather chair, completely unconcerned. Fraudulent is such an ugly word. We're simply leveraging family resources. Your mother agrees it's time you contributed something meaningful to this family's success. You're using Summit's reputation to legitimize a Ponzi scheme. Investment opportunity, he corrected. High risk, high reward. The kind of thing your little firm would never have the balls to attempt. But with your name attached, investors trust it's been properly vetted. I'll report this. I'll go to the SEC. With what proof? Tom smiled, opening his desk drawer to reveal a thick folder. Because what I have here are emails from your Summit account encouraging Ethan to use company resources. Timestamp shows you sent them during work hours. There's also this interesting pattern of you accessing confidential client lists, which happen to overlap with Barrett Properties' new acquisitions. I stared at the papers he spread across his desk, fabricated emails, doctored access logs, even a falsified communication with a competitor about selling Summit's client data. This is insane. Digital forensics will prove. Will prove what? That the stepdaughter with a grudge against her successful family tried to frame them after being caught in her own embezzlement scheme? He stood, walking around the desk. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to formally join Barrett Premier Capital as a silent partner. You're going to continue providing Summit's seal of approval, and you're going to stop seeing that construction worker who's filling your head with ideas above your station. Go to hell. Or, he continued as if I hadn't spoken, I submit all of this to Summit's board. Your career ends. You face federal investigation, maybe criminal charges. Your mother would be devastated. Her daughter, a white-collar criminal. I found my mother at home, arranging flowers like nothing had happened. Mom, Tom's blackmailing me. She didn't look up. Don't be dramatic, Natalie. He forged my signature. He's using my job to run a fraud. He's trying to include you. She finally faced me, her eyes blazing with something I'd never seen before. For once in your life, can't you just be grateful? Tom has built an empire, and he's offering you a piece of it. He's threatening to destroy my career. Then cooperate. Family first, Natalie. That's what Diane always says. And she's right. You think you're so special with your little job and your inappropriate boyfriend, but what has that gotten you? A one-bedroom apartment and a Toyota? Tom is offering you real wealth, real security. Mom, my voice broke. He's committing crimes, and he's forcing me to be complicit. She turned back to her flowers. I don't want to hear this anymore. Tom is my husband. Ethan is building a future. You can either be part of this family's success or continue being the eternal victim. Your choice. That night, Jake found me crying in my apartment, the screenshots printed and scattered across my coffee table. We need a lawyer, he said immediately. This is extortion. With what money? Tom has resources I can't match, and if this goes public, even if I'm cleared, my reputation is destroyed. Summit won't keep me. No firm will touch me. So you let them win? I don't know what else to do. I looked at him through my tears. They've trapped me. Either I become their accomplice, or they destroy everything I've built. Jake pulled me close, his voice hard with anger I'd never heard before. No, we're going to find another way. They want to play dirty? Fine. But they're not the only ones who can gather evidence. What are you talking about? I'm talking about turning their own game against them. You have those screenshots. Start documenting everything, every email, every conversation, every forged document. Build a case so airtight that when we strike back, they won't see it coming. And if they destroy me first? Jake's jaw clenched. Then we make sure we take them down with you. But Natalie, I don't think it'll come to that. Criminals like Tom always make one mistake. They assume everyone else is as dirty as they are. They won't expect you to fight back with the truth. As I looked at the evidence spread before me, I realized Jake was right about one thing. Tom and Ethan had made a crucial error. They'd backed me into a corner. Yes, but they'd also given me access to their scheme. Every forged document, every fraudulent claim, they all led back to them. The prey was about to become the hunter. The suspension letter arrived on a Monday. Pending investigation into potential conflicts of interest and unauthorized use of company resources. My hands didn't shake anymore. I'd moved past shock into something harder, colder. Derek wouldn't meet my eyes when I packed my office. It's just protocol, he mumbled. Once they investigate, you'll be cleared. But we both knew how this worked. The accusation alone was poison. Even if proven innocent, the stain would remain. Tom had calculated perfectly. Not enough evidence to convict, just enough to destroy. My apartment became a war room. Jake had installed new locks, a security system, even cameras after we'd noticed things moved. Papers rifled through. We knew Tom was having me watched, trying to gauge how broken I was. Let them think you're defeated, Jake said, reviewing the growing file of evidence we'd compiled. The more confident they get, the sloppier they'll become. He was right. Within a week, Ethan was bragging on social media about Barrett Premier Capital's first major investor, a retired judge who'd been promised 40% returns. Tom had started using my forged signature more liberally, certain I was too paralyzed to fight back. Then came the night that almost broke me entirely. The shouting started around 11 p.m. I was at home, Jake working late on a project deadline. Through my thin apartment walls, I could hear my neighbors arguing, then something breaking, then silence. 20 minutes later, the police arrived. I watched from my window as they knocked on the door next to mine, 4B instead of 4A. My phone rang. Mom, you need to come home, now. I found chaos. Tom stood in the living room, his face red with rage. A whiskey bottle shattered against the wall. My mother cowered in the corner, and Ethan was screaming about something. Money missing. A deal gone wrong. The police lights still flashed outside from their visit to my neighbors, casting blue shadows through our windows. "This is your fault," Tom roared when he saw me. "You talked to someone, didn't you? The Jensen account pulled out, 50 million, gone." "I haven't talked to anyone." He moved so fast I barely saw it coming. Not hitting. Tom was too smart for visible bruises, but backing me against the wall, his hands slamming beside my head, his face inches from mine. "You're going to fix this. You're going to call Jensen and convince him to reinvest, or I swear to God." "The police are literally outside," I said quietly. He laughed, ugly and bitter. At the neighbors. "You think they care about family disputes in this neighborhood? You think anyone would believe you over me?" My mother finally spoke. "Tom, please, let's all calm down." "Shut up, Linda. Your daughter is destroying everything we've built." "Everything you've stolen," I corrected. His hand moved to grip my shoulder, fingers digging in hard enough to leave marks. "You want to see destroyed? Keep pushing. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Your precious little job is already gone. Want to lose more?" The front door opened. Aunt Diane walked in like she owned the place, taking in the scene with cold calculation. "Let her go." "Tom," she said calmly, "the police are still next door. We don't need attention." He released me. Stepping back, Diane approached, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "Natalie, you look distressed. Perhaps you should remember what I've always said. Family first. We protect each other. We support each other. And we certainly don't air our grievances to outsiders." She glanced at the window where the police lights were fading. "Things could be so much worse than a simple job suspension. You still have your health, your apartment, your little boyfriend. Would be a shame if any of that changed." The threat was crystal clear. "Are you threatening me, Aunt Diane?" "I'm reminding you of priorities. Tom and Ethan have been perhaps overzealous in their business dealings, but they're family. Your mother chose this life, chose this security. Don't destroy it because you're too proud to play your part." "My part being the fall guy for their crimes?" "Your part being a supportive family member who understands that sometimes individual sacrifice serves the greater good." She touched my cheek, gentle but somehow menacing. "You were always too much like your father, too rigid, too principled. Look where it got him. Dead at 42, leaving your mother with nothing." "He died of a heart attack." "Stress-induced, from trying to maintain standards he couldn't afford. Don't make his mistakes. Natalie, don't die on a hill that isn't worth it." After I left, I sat in my car for an hour, shaking, not from fear anymore, but from rage. They'd threatened everything, my career, my safety, even Jake, and my mother had stood there, silent, complicit, choosing them again. Jake found me there at 2 a.m., still sitting in the parking lot. "Pack a bag," he said. "You're staying with me until this is over. They'll escalate if they think I'm running. Let them. Every threat, every forged document, every crime. We're documenting all of it. I've been talking to a friend from the service. He's a private investigator now. We're going to bury them. Nat, but first, we need to keep you safe." As we drove to his apartment, I made a decision. They wanted to invoke family first? Fine. But they'd forgotten something crucial. I was never really family to them, which meant I had nothing left to lose. "Jake," I said quietly, "I'm done playing defense." He glanced at me, saw something in my face that made him nod. "Good. What do you need?" "Everything. Every dirty deal Tom's ever made, every investor Ethan's conned, every crime they thought they'd buried." I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the contacts I'd accumulated over years at Summit. They want to destroy me? Let's see who burns first. The war was officially on. The private investigator Jake hired was named Marcus Webb, a former military intelligence officer who looked like an accountant but thought like a chess grandmaster. We met in a diner outside the city limits, where he spread photographs across the sticky table like playing cards. "Your stepfather's been busy," Marcus said, tapping a photo of Tom meeting with a city planning commissioner. "Barrett Properties has acquired 7 buildings in the last 18 months, all through shell companies, all in zones that mysteriously got rezoned for commercial development right after purchase. Insider trading on property development," Jake said. "That's federal?" "It gets better." Marcus pulled out bank records. "The Barrett Premier Capital Fund? It's not just using Natalie's forged credentials. They're washing money through it. Small amounts from each investor get redirected to offshore accounts before being reinvested. Classic money laundering, but with a twist. They're using legitimate investors as unwitting mules." I studied the documents, my mind racing. The Jensen account that pulled out. Can we trace why? "Already did. Someone tipped him off. Not you, though." Marcus smiled grimly. "Turns out Tom's cousin, co-owner of Barrett Properties, is getting nervous. He's been quietly warning select investors, creating a paper trail to save himself when this implodes." This was the crack we needed. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize, calculating, methodical, ruthless. While Tom and Ethan thought I was cowering in Jake's apartment, I was building a case that would destroy them. I reached out to former Summit clients, carefully probing about any Barrett Properties approaches. 3 had been contacted, 2 had invested. 1, Mrs. Chen, no relation despite the name, had lost her retirement savings. "They promised 40% returns," she told me over coffee, her hands shaking. "Your name was on the documents. I trusted Summit's reputation." "Those were forgeries. I'm going to prove it." She gave me something invaluable, the original investment documents with my supposedly authentic signature. When compared to my real signature on file at Summit, the differences were obvious to any forensic analyst. Jake worked his own angles, using his construction contacts to investigate Barrett Properties buildings. What he found was damning. Substandard materials, safety violations covered up with bribes, inspection reports that had been altered. One building, a low-income housing complex, had structural damage that Tom had hidden rather than repaired. "People could die," Jake said, showing me the engineer's reports. "The northeast corner is literally pulling away from the foundation." But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Haley, Tom's precious daughter, called me one night, drunk and crying. "I know you hate us," she slurred, "but Daddy and Ethan are going to pin something on me. I heard them talking. If the investment fund goes bad, they need someone to blame besides you. Someone in the family who was manipulated by the evil stepsister." "Haley, are you recording this call?" "No, God, no. I'm scared. Natalie, Daddy's different lately. Meaner. And Mom?" She meant Tom's ex-wife, not my mother. "Mom says he did this before, at his old company. Someone went to jail for him." I met her the next morning in a park, where she handed me a flash drive with shaking hands. "Daddy's personal files, the ones he thinks are encrypted. My fiancé's brother is in IT. He helped me copy them." She looked hollow, frightened. "There's stuff going back years, people he's hurt, deals he's made. I don't want to be next." The drive was a goldmine. Tom had kept records of everything, every bribe, every threat, every forged document. He'd even recorded some conversations, presumably for his own blackmail purposes, including one with my mother where she explicitly agreed to pressure me into compliance. I can handle Natalie, my mother's voice said on the recording. She's always been weak when it comes to family. A little guilt, a little pressure. She'll fold. Hearing it broke something in me I hadn't realized was still whole. Marcus helped us organize everything into a package that would be undeniable. Bank records showing the money laundering, engineering reports on the dangerous buildings, forged documents compared with authentic signatures, the recorded conversations, a timeline of every crime, every victim. But I didn't want to just hand it to the authorities. I wanted Tom and Ethan to know it was me who ended them. I wanted them to feel what I'd felt, helpless, trapped, watching everything they'd built crumble. "We do this smart," Jake said, holding me after I'd listened to my mother's recording for the third time. "We make copies of everything, multiple law firms, multiple federal agencies. We make it impossible for them to bury this or blame you."
And Aunt Diane?
Marcus had found something on her too. Tax evasion through her charity foundation, using it to funnel money to Tom's schemes. She wasn't just complicit. She was an active participant. "She goes down with them," Jake said firmly. I looked at the boxes of evidence we'd accumulated, each one a nail in their coffins. They'd taught me well. This family that wasn't mine. They'd shown me how to be ruthless, how to document everything, how to strike when the enemy thinks they've won. "We need to time this perfectly," I said. "Maximum impact, no escape routes." Marcus nodded. "The quarterly Family Foundation Gala is in 2 weeks. Diane always makes sure the local press covers it. Every important person in Riverside Heights attends. The gala where I'd never been welcome, where family first would be toasted by people who had no idea what that really meant in the Barrett household." "Perfect," I said, and for the first time in months, I smiled. "Let's give them a party they'll never forget." The Riverside Heights Country Club had never seen me in a gown before. I walked through the doors of the annual foundation gala in a black dress that cost more than I'd ever spent on clothing. Jake had insisted, said I needed armor for this battle. The room glittered with the city's elite, champagne flowing, laughter echoing off crystal chandeliers. Tom saw me first, his face cycling through shock, rage, and then a calculated calm. He approached with Ethan flanking him, both in tuxedos that screamed money. "What are you doing here?" Tom hissed. "You weren't invited." "I bought a table," I replied calmly. "Supporting charity is important. Family first, remember?" Aunt Diane materialized, resplendent in silver. "Natalie, how unexpected. I wasn't aware you had this kind of money to throw around. Amazing what you can afford when you liquidate everything. My apartment, my car, my retirement fund." I sipped champagne. "All for a good cause." My mother appeared, her face pale. "Natalie, please, whatever you're planning." "Planning? I'm just here to support the Family Foundation. In fact, I have a presentation for tonight, a special announcement about Barrett Properties and Barrett Premier Capital's newest venture." Tom's hand gripped my arm. "You say one word." "The mayor's watching," I said softly, "along with Judge Harrison, 3 city councilmen, and that reporter from the Herald. Careful, Tom." He released me, but his eyes promised violence. "Outside, now." "The presentation starts in 15 minutes. Main stage. Don't be late." I walked away, feeling their eyes burning into my back. Jake was already in position by the audio-visual booth. Marcus near the exits. We'd rehearsed this down to the second. The foundation president announced me with confusion. Diane hadn't told him about my presentation. I took the stage as hundreds of Riverside Heights' most powerful turned their attention to me. "Good evening. I'm Natalie Carter, daughter of Linda Barrett, stepdaughter of Tom Barrett." I clicked the remote, and the screen behind me lit up. "Tonight, I want to share an incredible story of family entrepreneurship." The first slide showed Barrett Properties' impressive portfolio. Tom relaxed slightly in the audience. 7 buildings acquired in 18 months. Remarkable growth. Click. Especially remarkable when you consider each purchase preceded rezoning announcements by exactly 3 days. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "But that's just good timing, right?" Click, bank records appeared. Like the good timing of investor funds being redirected through offshore accounts before returning. Classic money laundering, the FBI calls it. "Turn it off," Tom shouted, but Jake had locked the system. Click, the forged documents appeared, my real signature beside them. Barrett Premier Capital promised 40% returns using fraudulent credentials. My credentials, forged without my knowledge. The murmurs became gasps. People were pulling out phones, recording. Click, the engineering reports. Barrett Properties crown jewel, Riverside Towers, has structural damage that could kill dozens, hidden, covered up, ignored. "She's lying," Ethan screamed. "She's bitter, delusional." Click, the audio played. Tom's voice discussing bribing the planning commissioner, laughing about idiots who trusted pretty promises. Then my mother's voice. "I can handle Natalie. She's always been weak." Click, photos of Tom meeting with known crime figures, Ethan's cocaine-fueled parties using investor funds, Diane's charity foundation records showing massive tax fraud. "Every document," I said clearly, "has been provided to the FBI, the SEC, the IRS, and the State Attorney General. Arrest warrants have already been issued." As if on cue, the ballroom doors opened. Federal agents walked in, their badges visible, their purpose clear. The room erupted in chaos, people backing away from Tom's table, phones flashing, reporters surging forward. "Tom Barrett," the lead agent announced, "you're under arrest for money laundering, wire fraud, and racketeering." "This is her," Tom roared as they cuffed him. "She's the one who—" "Actually," the agent said, "Ms. Carter has been cleared of all wrongdoing. She's been cooperating with us for weeks. The evidence she provided is extensive and irrefutable." They arrested Ethan next, who was trying to flee through the kitchen. Then Diane, who maintained her composure even as the handcuffs clicked. "Family first," she said to me as they led her past. "You've destroyed your family." "No," I replied. "I was never family to you. I just destroyed a criminal organization that happened to share my address." My mother stood frozen, watching her world crumble. She wasn't arrested. She'd been manipulated more than criminal. But the social destruction was complete. Every friend, every connection, evaporated in seconds. "How could you?" she whispered. "How could you?" I countered. "You chose them over me every single day for 20 years. You let them destroy my childhood, steal my savings, threaten my career, threaten my safety. You stood by and watched, telling me to endure it for family. I was trying to protect you." "No, you were protecting yourself, your comfortable life, your status, your security. You sacrificed me for it." The reporters surrounded us, shouting questions, but I was done talking. Jake appeared at my elbow, guiding me through the chaos. As we reached the door, I turned back one last time. Tom and Ethan were being led out in handcuffs. Diane followed, her silver gown incongruous with the federal custody jacket. The Barrett Properties empire was finished. The buildings would be seized, the assets frozen, the name forever tainted. My mother stood alone in the middle of the glittering ballroom, surrounded by people who would never speak to her again. "Family first," I said, though she couldn't hear me over the chaos. I finally put myself first. Outside, red and blue lights painted the country club facade. News vans were already arriving. The story of the century for Riverside Heights. Jake pulled me close as we walked to his truck. "You did it," he said. "It's over." "No," I corrected, watching as they loaded Tom into the federal vehicle. His eyes met mine through the window, pure hatred that no longer had any power over me. "It's just beginning." 6 months later. I stood in my new office at Morrison & Associates, the city's most prestigious investment firm. They'd recruited me after the trial, saying anyone who could build such an airtight case while under that kind of pressure was exactly who they wanted managing their risk assessment division. The salary was triple what Summit had paid, but more importantly, the respect was real. Tom got 25 years federal time. The judge called it One of the most egregious cases of financial fraud and endangerment he'd ever seen. Ethan got 15 years, eligible for parole in 7. Aunt Diane received 10 years for tax evasion and conspiracy. Her charity foundation dissolved. Her society status evaporated like morning mist. Barrett Properties was liquidated. The dangerous buildings were condemned and rebuilt properly. Mrs. Chen and the other investors got most of their money back from the seized assets. The low-income residents of Tom's neglected properties were relocated safely before the buildings were demolished. My mother wasn't charged, but she might as well have been. She lived now in a small apartment on the outskirts of town. Working as a receptionist at a dental office, we hadn't spoken since the gala. Though I heard from Haley that she'd started therapy, maybe someday she'd understand what she'd done. Maybe someday I'd forgive her. But not today. Haley herself had surprised me. She'd testified against her father, helped the FBI uncover more hidden accounts. Her fiancé stood by her, and they'd moved to Portland to start fresh. She sent me a thank you card last month. "You saved me from becoming him." Jake's business had exploded after the trial. Turns out, being known as the man who helped expose Barrett Properties' structural crimes was excellent advertising for an honest engineering firm. He'd hired 12 new employees and bought the building next to his office for expansion. We'd bought a house together last month, nothing fancy, just a 3-bedroom colonial with good bones and a big backyard. Jake spent weekends fixing it up, teaching me about load-bearing walls and foundation integrity. Building something real, he'd say. Something that won't collapse when the truth comes out. Marcus Webb still checked in occasionally. He'd used the Barrett case to launch a consulting firm specializing in corporate fraud investigation. He sent me a bottle of champagne when Forbes ran a profile on him titled, "The Detective Who Brought Down Barrett." Summit Capital had welcomed me back with apologies and a promotion, but I'd declined. That chapter was closed. Morrison and Associates was my future, a place where my name on a document meant something, where my success came from my ability, not from what I could be manipulated into providing. The best part? Every month, I received a letter from federal prison. Tom's rage-filled missives about how I'd destroyed the family, how I'd pay for this, how he'd ruin me when he got out. I kept them all, filed neatly in a folder labeled Evidence of Continued Harassment. My lawyer said they'd ensure he served every day of his sentence. No early release for good behavior. Sometimes I wondered about that night the police knocked on the neighbor's door while Tom and my mother fought. How different things might have been if they'd knocked on our door instead, but then I wouldn't have learned the most important lesson of my life. Sometimes the family that hurts you while preaching family first isn't family at all. Sometimes you have to burn down the toxic foundation to build something genuine. Jake found me on the balcony of our new house one evening, looking out over the city lights. Riverside Heights sparkled below, the country club visible in the distance. "Regrets?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me. "None," I said, and meant it. They taught me well. Document everything. Trust no one who demands blind loyalty. And never let anyone make you small to make themselves feel big. And what did you teach them? I smiled, thinking of Tom in his federal jumpsuit, Ethan doing kitchen duty, Diane's designer wardrobe replaced with prison gray. That family first means putting yourself first when the family is poison. That blood doesn't entitle anyone to destroy you, and that sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with federal warrants at a black tie gala. My phone buzzed, an unknown number, but I recognized the area code, the Federal Detention Center. "Tom?" Jake asked. "Probably." I deleted it without reading. He'll never understand that he created this. Every forge, every threat, every family-first manipulation. He taught me how to be ruthless. The student just surpassed the teacher. We went inside, where Jake had dinner waiting. Nothing fancy, just pasta and wine in our own home. Paid for with honest money. Built on truth instead of lies. No marble counters or crystal chandeliers. But something infinitely more valuable. Peace. As I sat across from the man who'd stood by me when my entire world imploded, who'd helped me gather evidence instead of telling me to give in, who'd loved me when I couldn't love myself. I realized the ultimate irony. Tom had been right about one thing: family first. I just had to find my real family first. And it turned out that family wasn't about blood or marriage or manipulation. It was about choosing someone who helped you stand when everyone else wanted you to kneel. The Barretts had taught me how to document crimes, build cases, and destroy enemies. But Jake had taught me something more important: how to build something worth protecting in the first place. Family first, indeed. The family you choose, not the one that chooses to destroy you. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. What would you have done in my situation? Your perspectives mean everything to me.